Hi gang, it's Mark Thompson from Thompson Chiropractic and Superior Recovery and Performance. Today, I wanted to do a short little video on allergies. Stay tuned. If I sound a little nasally, it's because I am. Allergies are getting me too, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to go ahead and share some things, some strategies that you need to know. Okay, so let's start off by talking about homeopathics. So we're going to divide those up into kind of springtime and then fall and then some specific homeopathics. So for spring, I like something called allium cepa. Allium cepa is for when you have itchy, watery eyes. Sometimes you're just clawing at your eyes. You just can't help but rub them because they just itch so bad. You have drainage. It's usually kind of a scratchy throat, gives you that tickly cough kind of thing. And a lot of times the mucus is so runny. It's clear and it's runny. It's like you bend over and your nose wants to drip. It's really thin. Okay, if it's thicker, that's different stuff. But so springtime, allium cepa is really good. There's another one called hydrastis. Hydrastis is for the drainage. When it's causing a sore throat and it's going into your chest, it's causing that tickly cough, and sometimes you're getting some, so you're moving some stuff in the chest. Hydrastis is really good for drainage. There's histaminum. Histaminum is actually from histamine, but homeopathically it has the opposite effect. It's working like an antihistamine, and it's really good to help just calm down your body's response to these different allergens. Occasionally you might want to throw in some homeopathic adrenal support. That again usually will help take the edge off, make you less susceptible to all of these things. So for the fall, basically it's all the same, except sometimes we substitute a homeopathic called Euphrasia officinalis. That's a little more for ragweed, pollen, that kind of stuff. They're really used interchangeably, but it tends to fall into allium cepa for spring, Euphrasia for fall. Then we have specific homeopathics for different allergens, okay? In Northeast Oklahoma, it's like the mold capital of the world. There's over 500 different kinds of mold that they've identified in Northeast Oklahoma. Okay, 15 of the top 25 mold-infested places in the U.S. are in Northeast Oklahoma. So mold is almost always an issue. Sometimes it's the main issue, sometimes not. But taking some mold yeast and dust or something like that can really help with allergies any time of the year in Oklahoma. Then we have some specifics like tree pollen, which is really bad right now, spring in Oklahoma. It's terrible. A lot of people are having some serious problems with tree pollen. And then we have grass and weeds, and occasionally we have flowers that will bother people. But really it's mold, yeast and dust, and tree pollen most of the time. With homeopathics, especially with the combinations that are specific for these different allergens, you can use them very frequently until you get some relief. And as you do, you're just going to expand the time between doses. So you might start out every 15 minutes if it's really bad. And as things improve, you're going to go to every 30, every hour, every couple hours, and then when things really do tend to abate, then at that point you can probably let it go or go to every 4 hours, just a couple of times a day. But that is homeopathic stuff for allergies. Hi guys, another little trick I like to use is, especially for those people that don't seem to respond to homeopathy as well. Most of the time I think it's because they need to do some sort of a cleanse or a detox. But there are some people that just don't respond to the homeopathic stuff as well as I do. So this is another little tip that I like to throw in there. It's a combination of both nutritional and herbal things. It's anti-inflammatory and antihistamine. And in the old days, when I first started doing this, I had to have 4 different bottles and take pills from each one. But pretty much anymore, everybody, including the health food stores in this area, they even have their own store brands of the same thing. It's a combination, just ask, it'll be in the allergy section. But it contains bromelain, which is a protein digesting enzyme, has a good anti-inflammatory effect. Quercetin, which is anti-inflammatory and antihistamine. You've got stinging nettle, both, again. And then vitamin C. Some brands add a bunch of other stuff. That's really the core. That's what I think is really the most effective. Sometimes they'll throw in additional vitamin A, vitamin E, other antioxidants, and I'm not saying those things are bad. It's just that you really want to make sure you've got that core of the 3 or 4 things: nettle, bromelain, quercetin, and most of the time vitamin C. So anyway, just another tip. Hope it helps. Well, as most of you know, I'm a chiropractor. I do sports rehabilitation, but primarily I'm a chiropractor, so I'm going to talk to you about chiropractic and allergies. it is critical. If you're not getting adjusted on a regular basis, that's half the reason you're having trouble right now. Because if you live in Northeast Oklahoma, you don't get adjusted on a regular basis, I am not surprised that you don't have tons of trouble with allergies. It's the mold capital of the world, I think. And we're just constantly bombarded by things from other states. So you need a good nervous system, a good immune function. And there is no better way than being adjusted. So get adjusted on a regular schedule. Doesn't have to be 3 times a week, folks. It just needs to be on a regular basis. Stick with it. Be consistent. So we need to work on places in your neck, okay, for the sinuses. We need to work on the organs that take the biggest hit with allergy season. That's going to be the adrenals and the liver. Okay, we need to work on the supportive things like digestion. Okay, so stomach acid has a lot to do with how much trouble you have with acid, with allergies. You're going to need good intestinal health, and we're going to talk about how the Chinese tie in intestinal health with asthma and allergies. It's a huge thing. So if you're not getting adjusted, sit down, pull out your calendar, figure out a schedule that's good for you, and get adjusted on a regular basis. Enough said. Okay, so let's talk about how digestion and the integrity of your intestines affects your sensitivity to allergens and your susceptibility to things like asthma. Don't ask me how, but the Chinese are masters at observation, and they have figured out that, and they actually coupled the meridians together, the lung and the lower intestine. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of times people that have asthma and allergy problems also have skin issues. It's the same tissue. It's called the integumentary system, and it's the skin. And so it is the same all the way through from one end to the other, and it's the same basic tissue as your skin. So if this is unhappy, you tend to have rashes, but you also tend to have problems with asthma, allergies, and things like that. So the best way to actually improve your lower digestion, the health of the intestines, is to make sure you have good upper digestion. And that starts with the stomach. Do you produce enough stomach acid to get the job done? Because everything else basically keys off of what happens in the stomach. When the contents leave the stomach, your body's looking to see it at a certain pH level, and then you get a liver gallbladder release of enzymes and bile. You get the pancreatic bicarbonate enzymes to neutralize the acid out of the stomach. You need a full dispensation of all of these enzymes, okay, and bile to make everything work right. So we have to make sure digestion is good at the level of the stomach and then below. So we're going to start with the baking soda burp test. It's just what it sounds like. You're going to take half a teaspoon of baking soda, mix it in a little water, shoot it down, time how long it takes you to have a really good burp. And when I say a really good burp, I don't mean some petite little belch. I'm talking about something that rattles the windows. You want something really good. And you're going to see how long that took. If it took less than a minute, then chances are you've probably got a little too much stomach acid. If it took between 1 and 3 minutes, then you're normal. That's great. That's perfect. That's where you really want to be, that window. If it took between 3 and 5 minutes, you're probably a little on the deficient side. And something like apple cider vinegar, which we'll talk about again in a minute, can make all the difference in the world. If it's beyond 5 minutes, then you failed that particular test, and you should be doing some hydrochloric acid. Because, again, we want everything to key off of the right amount of acid, okay, or pH level as it leaves the stomach. So the other options are really supporting the liver and gallbladder, because if you eat too much sugar or too many, processed carbohydrates, or if you just don't break down fats as well, some support for liver and gallbladder can make a huge difference. The liver makes the bile, and then the gallbladder holds it until you eat something that requires bile to help break down, and then it squirts some out at the right time. Everything is peachy. If you don't have a gallbladder, then your poor little liver is trying to make the bile and squirt it out at the same time, and that almost never happens appropriately, and you're going to have altered digestion. So supporting the liver and gallbladder, especially the function, the bile manufacturing part of the liver, is going to be key. The other side is going to be the pancreas and those bicarbonate enzymes that it throws in. It's got enzymes to break down protein, fat, and carbs in those pancreatic enzymes. Some people in my practice are kosher. So obviously pancreatic enzymes aren't going to work because they come from a porcine source, come from pigs. So you're going to need to get something that's been bacterially generated. And they don't tell you that. They just say that it's not from an animal source. That's what you want, okay? So it's going to be a little broader spectrum enzyme, okay, than the pancreatic stuff, but it doesn't work in as broad a pH, and they're not usually as strong in my opinion. That's why I like the pancreatic enzymes. If you're kosher, you just have to go with the best that you can find, and you may have to double up a little bit, do a couple instead of just doing one per meal. So if we straighten out upper digestion, then we're going to help lower digestion tremendously. There are some specific things that are really good to help repair the intestinal lining, and I like something called L-glutamine. L-glutamine helps to repair the mucus lining that coats the inside of the entire alimentary canal. It's a good thing, and it helps to make it a happy home for the bacteria that you put in later, because you want to make it appealing to them because they'll hang around. So L-glutamine is really good. If you are an herbalist, then marshmallow is really good. Aloe is really good if you can tolerate that. So outside of those things, then really you need to put in some good bacteria. I haven't had a great deal of success with commercial probiotics. I will tell you that if you're going to do it, I tend to do more than the label says. If it says do 1 a day, I tend to do 1 3 times a day, okay? You're going to let your stool be your guide. If you get a little constipated, then skip a day, drink some juice, and it should all calm back down. But you want to go to the point that you start to get a little tight, okay? Because you want to put in as much as you can. You want to put it in at various times so that some of it makes it through the stomach acid and does, in fact, make little happy communities in your intestines, okay? I also like to rotate, so I tend to do it at an accelerated rate. I'm doing 1 3 times a day instead of just 1 a day. And so you're going to use it up faster. So when I run out of the first bottle, I tend to get a second, but I get a different brand that's going to have a different strains of bacteria in there so that we can kind of add to the mix. There's about 60 different types of beneficial bacteria that we should have in our intestines. Most people have a third of that. So I like to vary the brands. I do it the same way. If it starts to cause a little constipation, you back off, but otherwise I go at 2 or 3 times what the label says, and that's to put in the good bacteria. My favorite thing is actually homemade sauerkraut. I, hands down, think it works better than any of the commercial stuff out there, including the very expensive commercial probiotics. So it's easy. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube. I encourage you to go. I'll try and do a video later on how to make it. I'll go through the steps. You can watch me make some sauerkraut. But in the meantime, go to YouTube. Go to immunutrition.com. I think her name is Carolyn Barger. She is fantastic. So go to her site, watch her videos. Great stuff. Okay? All right. One of the things I told you I was going to come back and revisit it is apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar has 2 different types of acids that if you take it at the beginning of the meal, stimulate your stomach to make more hydrochloric acid, which is what we're looking for most of the time. It also has active enzymes that mimic the stuff that comes from the pancreas, so it helps with upper digestion but outside of the stomach. It helps to change your pH. It's acid going in, but it leaves behind an alkaline ash, so it helps to actually change the pH in a beneficial way in your intestines, again, trying to make it a happier home for those bacteria. So apple cider vinegar has lots of real benefits. It tends to thin the bile so that if it's thick and sludgy, it thins it so that, you can squirt some into the intestines, you get the right amount at the right time, okay? That's a key. Apple cider vinegar covers all those things. So I really, really like apple cider vinegar. I'd stick to an unpasteurized brand of apple cider vinegar. Okay, last but not least, I want to revisit chiropractic for a minute because all the things we talked about, liver, sinuses, intestines, well, we also need adrenals. We also need stomach. You need to be adjusted on a regular basis so that your body has the best chance of making all of these things. Your body is the best pharmacy in the world. It knows exactly what to do, what to make, what quantity, and when to use it. The key is it can't have interference. So get adjusted on a regular basis. Remove the interference. Your body knows what to do. It might need a nudge in the right direction because you've not been paying attention in the past, but that's all it should need. All right? So get adjusted. Look at your intestinal health. It's a huge thing when it comes to asthma and allergies. See you soon.